People are strange. Strange. Fucking strange.
Is that strange?
That is strange.
Strange.
That is strange.
Wow, that is strange. This is strange.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Strange Sauna. I am here again, alone in my studio, but I'm not alone in this universe because I got Big Ron right here on this call with me. What's going on, Big Ron?
Hello, everybody. Hello. How are we doing?
Oh, we are doing just fantastic. So the last time we saw you, you got a little shit-faced.
I did. It snuck up on me.
Yeah. It was those aliens.
Happens.
I think the aliens climbed up your butthole, or they did something up there.
They did something. They drugged me.
Yep. You know, that alien anal rape. I heard that happens quite a bit. So.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Well, hey.
No experience there. You
Okay.
might have some experience with that.
Well, the day is young, so we'll just put it that way. So what's been going on in your realm as far as
Actually, a lot of stuff going on right now.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of people entering my life right now that it's kind of weird. A lot of people entering and out of the blue telling me their life stories and
Yeah.
Where they're coming from, the experiences they're having. It's weird times we're living in. I think things are happening.
Well, and I know you can't share too much about personal things and personal stories from people that you've been talking to and whatnot, but just super high level of what you said kind of at one of our last Patreon call-in shows is that you had somebody who kind of had a vision and you might have been part of that vision, or at least you tangentially got drawn into it because of the location where this guy was told to go. And then he saw you and then it was kind of he was drawn to you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, there was two people that have been drawn to me and come to me almost at the same time. And they both had similar stories. And I believe that my understanding of this is that they are both sent back to help us in what's going on right now. And they both apparently were sent to me to help with their awakening because they were told things that they didn't understand. And I've been able to clarify what those things are and help them to wake up.
Yeah, I wonder how many people,
as strange as that sounds,
I wonder how many people that actually happens to, where they see something, or it's like they have like some sort of prophecy, you know, in a dream or just whatever, and they're seeing all these symbolic kind of things, but they just kind of like let it brush off because they don't know how to interpret it.
Well, I think that there's a lot of that. I think that there's a lot of people waking up right now, and these people that have come back to help us, or these entities that have come back to help us, are they have to go through the process of waking up and figuring out who they are and why they're here. And I think that that's being escalated right now because of the times we're living in. I believe that we're coming into a higher vibrational part of the universe. And because of that, we have to progress quickly.
Yeah.
We're behind schedule.
You know, and it's kind of interesting that you were talking about this as far as, you know, the term, the Great Awakening, the higher vibration, the new age, the golden age, the dawn of a new age, all this stuff, right? Yeah. I've been looking a lot into this as far as, well, kind of exploring both sides of, you know, you got the deep state side and then you got the Trump side, whatever he's on, right?
Right.
And I listened to a show called the Tinfoil Hat Podcast, and Sam Tripoli is the host of that show. And Sam has this theory that Trump is kind of part of his own mafia type of thing. So he's like, I picture Trump as being like another mob boss going up against a whatever mob boss. You know what I mean? That's just a blanket term. But I think that it's higher knowledge than that. I don't think it's just street level money, all that stuff. I think that I'm kind of exploring this idea that Trump is using either white magic or he's using the magic, or magic is kind of a, you know, childish term, but using some sort of, whether it's technology, whether it's the mind control type stuff, you know, I think that it's all there and it can be used for both good and bad. And I think that Trump is part of the team that is trying to use it for whatever's the best for humanity at this time.
I agree 100%. Trump, I think Trump is leading a crusade to take down the cabal.
So, but what is he going to what's he going to replace it with, though?
Hopefully, you take down the evil on the planet, replace it with peace, love, and kindness.
Yeah. Well, at least
the planet back what it's supposed to be. There's so much evil taking place on this planet right now that everybody's burying their heads to what's really going on. The deep state is human trafficking and child trafficking, and they're doing it right out in the open now, and people still aren't paying attention. I mean, did you see just yesterday that bus that they stopped that was full of in New York?
No, I didn't see it.
It was full of. They stopped a bus that was a plane that flew into a desolate airport up there, and there was a bus coming out of that airport that they stopped. It was full of mostly teenage girls.
Oh yeah,
and they weren't going to their families. They were going to sponsors. That's child trafficking. I don't care what you say. They were going to people that didn't even know who they were. They were bought and paid for.
So sponsors for was it for a legitimate corporation, or was this just a
sponsor? That's all they knew.
Oh,
they were going to sponsors. Well, I'm sure that these people were buying the kids, but the Biden administration has lost 20,000 kids already.
Just this year, or
yeah, well through this
whatever it is.
The border thing.
I get you. Do you think that we're in the times of the tribulation right now?
I think we're at the beginning of the rapture, and the rapture being different than I was taught in the Catholic Church. The rapture being where the good people are taken off the planet and the others are left. I don't think that's the way the rapture is going to happen now that I've done all my research. I believe that it's a vibrational thing. I think that our planet's coming into a higher vibration, and if people don't raise their vibration, they're going to be split off. And the people that actually are raising their vibration are going to be able to handle the higher vibration of the planet, and they're going to be the ones left here to keep going, and the others are going to be taken away.
So do you think, like, as far as split off, do you think that the people that don't transmorgify, or whatever the hell the word is, do you think that they'll just die, or what are you thinking? I
know a lot of people are going to think this is crazy, but I think they're going to be probably taken and reborn on another planet to keep living this 3-dimensional world until they evolve enough to ascend.
So they'll go through like the
they're going to go through the lives we're going through right now, our 3D lives. We're living a 3D life right now, 3rd density. But as far as to 4th and 5th density, but
it would be like a recycled birth and death, regeneration.
Yes, yeah, a reincarnation.
That's a bad thing. You're stuck in that cycle. You don't want to be in that.
Well, we want to break out of that cycle, and the people right now, our planet is heading into the higher vibration. They're forcing the issue because we're behind.
Yeah,
in where we're supposed to be. So, the issue is being forced because we're at the end of our timeline.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, so I want to ask you this, because I've been hearing more and more that kind of fits into what I was thinking all along, and this has to do with the higher vibration thing that you just mentioned. And this is, there's 2 ways to think about the higher vibration, right? There's the natural way to go about it. Some would say nirvana, some would say meditation, some would say it's spiritual growth. There's a way that you can naturally use your body to make this grow and happen, right? It's going to take a long time to learn, but eventually, if you do it the right way, this would be the most moral and acceptable way, right? As far as like a good and a bad thing go. And then I think that there's going to be a technocracy type of technology-driven awakening or vibrational change as well. And I think that it's going to be very temptatious.
Are you talking about like AI? Are you talking?
Yeah. So I heard a theory from Timothy Alberino. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he basically dives all into this. He's a theologian. He studies the Bible, and he tries to interpret it in different ways and bring in different concepts of like aliens, AI, because he basically just describes angels and heavenly bodies as aliens. I mean, no doubt about it. They come from not of this earth, right? But
I believe that.
He brings in this idea of the fallen angels, which there's certain sections in the Bible that refer to the Watchers. He describes the kingdom of heaven with several princes, right? And there was like a council. Jesus was the king, but you also had a council of members that would, sit at the table and they would convene and whatnot. And he was saying that at the time of Adam, or like the pre-Adamic scripture in the Bible, it shows that there was a world, but it was very chaotic. And he says that what happened there was in the aftermath when you had the fallen angels. And that's where you had members of the council that betrayed Jesus Christ. And they said, Jesus, you are not our savior. We will not follow you. And so they were kicked out of heaven, right? When that happened, there was a battle in space that blew up a planet and created the asteroid belt between, I believe, Jupiter and Saturn. I could be wrong. I don't know.
I think it's the planet. If I'm following you, I think it's the planet that created the Milky Way.
So maybe that's what he's talking about. And I could be putting words in his mouth. So everybody, if you're listening to this, go check it out. Go out, check out his material as well. But nonetheless,
well, Mars was in a war with another planet that had, and there's proof that nuclear bombs were set off on Mars in that battle. But in that battle, Mars, apparently the beings that lived on Mars had some sort of a weapon that blew that planet, completely annihilated it.
Oh yeah, so that's what he talks about too. He talks about advanced technology, and that's what he essentially is saying, that these watchers are guardians. They're meant to kind of watch.
I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the beings that have protected us they set up boundaries out in space to protect us from outside entities. Is that what you're talking about?
I believe so, but he was saying that these ones are bad.
The builders.
The builder race, yes. The ancient builder race. Yeah, he was saying that they come down and impregnate women to create demigods and to create the bloodlines, which has now become the Illuminati / the deep state and all that stuff.
Well, I don't know if those are the ones that have set up the protective barrier for us or not. I've never read that. But yes, going way back into biblical times, the Nephilims, which apparently were like gods, had relations with human women and created the bloodline that is now the Cabal.
Yes, and there's a lot of scripture, there's a lot of sculptures and stuff that kind of go along with this idea that aliens or fallen angels, demons, whatever you want to call them, came to Earth. They had these heavenly-like powers. I mean, they looked heavenly. They were shining.
Gods. They were gods.
Yeah. Well, yes, they would be gods, because then when they would mate with the human, they would create that demigod. And so whenever you mix a human and a god, you get a demigod, like a Hercules, right?
Right.
And the Nephilim in the Bible are supposedly mating with women, creating these demigods. And that's why you had, this bloodline that's been passed down for who knows how long. You know what I mean? And this is where I think...
Well, that's why the deep state believes that we are their slaves, because that's how it really started out. We were slaves to them back then, and their bloodline still believes that that's all we are, is their slaves. And that's why they want to reduce the population down to nothing more than enough slaves to serve their purposes.
Yeah. Well,
and that's a lot of what's going on. That's why they want to get rid of so many people, and are trying to do so through pandemics and multiple ways. A lot of different ways they're trying to do that.
Oh, yeah.
The jab, they're trying to do that.
Well, I heard that, in the end times, the Euphrates River will dry up. That will release 4 angels, but these will be angels of death. They will kill 1/3 of the world's population. And there is a story now that the Euphrates River has begun drying up, and they said within the next 10 years, it's going to be gone. I don't know if that's true. They're probably trying to sell some global warming bullshit, but Clyde Lewis on Ground Zero did an episode of sounds coming out of the Euphrates River. Someone went down and mic'd up several caves, and the sounds that were recorded coming out of there were ungodly. You could actually hear chains dragging, like chains dragging on the floor.
Really?
Just guttural moans, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So very, very, what's the word? Prophetic? Where it's kind of fits the line of this prophecy that, when the Bible says, in the end times, the Euphrates will dry up and release 4 angels to kill 1/3 of mankind. It's like, I don't know. But
that's probably not really necessarily angels, but probably 4.
The 4 horsemen, right?
Yeah, the 4 sicknesses or some plagues or 4 something like that that's going to kill people.
Okay. Interpreted as angels, but probably a virus or a deadly whatever.
That's my guess. I don't know.
Well, so going back to Timothy Alberino real quick, where he kind of comes in is that Christianity, so there's going to be this push to get rid of Christianity and to bring in a new God.
There already is.
Yes, and I heard Ryan Gable, he does the Secret Teachings podcast, and he's on Clyde Lewis's show. Yeah, I heard him on a different podcast as well, and he was talking about how they're basically trying to bring in this manufactured end of the world. Like they're trying to make up the end times in the Bible. So that way, when people see the patterns and they go, oh my God, this is it. This is the end. Our Lord Savior is going to come back. It's the second coming. When that doesn't happen, you will have a lot of people lose their faith. Kind of like the Q movement. When Q didn't, when there wasn't a lot of arrests and Biden won, a lot of people stopped believing in Q, if you want to say believing. But
that's a whole different story too. That's still very lively.
Yeah, right. Well, nonetheless,
in fact, a lot of the Q posts, getting off on a different subject, but a lot of the Q posts were meant for now.
Yeah,
not back then.
For sure. It sure seems like that, right?
Yeah.
But what Timothy Alberino goes on to say is that there will be a switch, and it will be a switch from denial into defiance. And this goes into the believe in Christ, right? And so when you're an atheist, you are in denial. You said there is no God. I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm going to go over here and live my life the best I can, right? So you're kind of indifferent, but you're just saying, nope, there is no God. So you're in denial of God. What's going to happen is when you have this second coming that doesn't happen, people will become defiant of God. So you'll go from denial, God doesn't exist, to defiance, which is, I am smiting God because he has left us alone. He's not, you become to resent God. And that's where you say, I'm not going to be, this isn't my God anymore. You know what I mean? Like you got backstabbed. So you're like, screw this guy. And that's when they'll bring in this new religion. And he's talking about how the Nephilim will return. All right, or it's this like the Watchers will come back down and they'll be gigantic and they'll walk with man. So he said like something about there was another golden age. During the golden age, the gods walked with men. He said that that's going to happen again. He's theorizing here, right? He's theorizing that this will be the new religion, is these angels, when they come down, they'll be using technology. So they'll look like aliens, UFOs, but they'll actually be very, very historical gods. And they will be the fallen ones who are trying to trick people into believing them. And then a lot of people will be tricked by them. And they'll say,
I haven't heard that story, but I've been seeing and hearing a lot about that. A lot of people are going to buy into big lies.
So what's bigger than a new god,
fits in
right?
line with that. Fits in line with that.
And what they're going to do is with this transhumanism, the ability to become God, what's it called? Apotheosis.
To be honest with you, transhumanism, when you actually look at it, looks very appealing. I mean,
for sure.
It's like, how they can make me a superhuman. And what's the downfall of that?
And it will. I mean, it will make people like the gods. And that's the goal, is the new gods that come down will show people how to become like them. And that's going to be the appeal, where people go, oh shit, I'm going to believe you because you're right here. I can see you. I see what you're doing. I can see what you're helping the world. Yes, let's embrace this new religion, these new gods that came out of nowhere. You know what I mean? So it's going to be very, very hard to dissuade people away from that. And one of the ideas that comes from Revelation. So if you think about it, if you're training these people on how to become like gods, and they have to maybe inject themselves with technology, like an mRNA shot, maybe, I don't know. Eventually, they will reach the point through this transhumanist event using AI. You're going to integrate with AI to become like a god.
They're already doing it.
Yes. Yeah. Right. So this is it's in infancy. And so
this isn't conspiracy theory. They're doing it.
Yep. Neuralink, prime example, right? In the book of Revelation 9:6, it says, "And in those days men will seek death, but will not find it. They will long to die, and death will fly from them." Meaning these people who have transmuted their bodies to become like gods will be begging to die, but they won't be able to die.
Right. Because they've got parts that keep regenerating themselves and fixing themselves.
Yeah, or maybe they'll be hooked up into a matrix type system, or maybe that's what hell is.
Yeah.
It's a never ending, because that sounds like hell to me, right?
Well, it could be loneliness. It could be like you're being forced to live. You don't have a life. You're just, can you imagine just being alive, but not having a life? You just would want to end it.
Well, yeah, you'd be like a vegetable, right?
Yeah.
Unless the AI was able to, get into another human being. And that's the whole point of AI is scary.
AI can do that.
Yeah.
That's the scary thing about AI. AI is very scary.
So, yeah, and that's my whole thing is like, he brought up this idea of raising your vibration, but in the evil sense of the way, right? Using technology. I don't know if it's going to be, quote unquote, from another god. But if you...
I've not heard of it.
No, it's a fascinating...
I've only heard of the raising vibration as ascending to God. I've never heard of it on the evil side. I don't know aware of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, think about it. There's got to be another side of it, right? If
well, the yin and the yang is with everything. That's what makes the universe go. So,
yes, indeed.
I suppose thinking about it, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm thinking like, okay, so you're getting the age of Aquarius, right? The precession of the equinoxes coming through.
Yeah.
So we're entering this new age.
Everybody's heard about the dawning of the age of Aquarius, and most people are aware that we're living towards the end of the age of Pisces right now. But what that actually means is that if you stand at any point on the Earth on the 21st of March, an hour before dawn, and look due east, you'll see a constellation sitting on the horizon. in the place where the sun will shortly rise. And that constellation for the last 2,000 or so years has been Pisces. But because of a wobble on the axis of the Earth, which unfolds very, very slowly and it's very hard to observe, we're gradually tracking backwards. The sun as a pointer against the zodiac is gradually tracking backwards through the zodiac.
1 degree every 72 years.
1 degree every 72 years. That's the key figure. And it's moving through Pisces and into Aquarius. And the time will come very soon when, as you stand at dawn looking due east on the 21st of March, the spring equinox, you'll see Aquarius on the horizon, not Pisces.
You have the Pluto return, and that's synonymous with the rise and the fall of empires. You also have Pluto is equivalent to Osiris in mythology, right? So it's just like whether it's Greek or Roman or Egyptian, and Osiris is equivalent to Pluto. So when you have Pluto returning, Osiris is returning. Osiris is the god of the underworld. So now you have the underworld coming back, being released, into the United States specifically because it's the birth of the United States was in, July 4th, 1776. We had a Pluto return. Now it's here again. So people are kind of thinking, are we in the end times? There's a lot of things that are adding up. Also, the tribulation, if you look at, so it's supposed to be 7 years, they said?
Yeah.
There is some speculation that it will be one half of that period, so 3.5 years, because of several verses in the Bible that makes it sound like, okay, well, halfway through, it'll be over. So there's been some debate whether it's going to be 7 years or whether it's going to be 3.5 years. And I'm like, okay, well, what's it going to be? Nonetheless, 3.5 years is 1,260 days. Isaac Newton actually figured that out. And because Isaac Newton, I guess, was super into this end of the world shit. Like he was really into using his brain and mathematics to figure out when will the world end per the Bible. And he came to the year, I think, 2050, by the way, which which fits right into this precession of the equinox, fits right into what
he could be pretty close, but depending on what you consider the world ending means.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, he just says Armageddon, Judgment Day. Arnold Schwarzenegger will come out as a Terminator in 2050. But the interesting thing that I did the calculation here, from the day that Joe Biden took office, he was inaugurated on January 21st, 2021. 1,260 days from that, so roughly the 3.5 years of this tribulation period, is July 4th exactly in 2024. So in 20, so the times of the tribulation, if it is 3.5 years on the dot, that will land on July 4th. If we use President Biden as the beginning of the tribulation. And if you look at the country, I mean, we would say, duh.
That can definitely be looked back on in history as the beginning of it.
Yeah. There's so much that could be looked at as the beginning of it, too. I mean, even 9/11, you could say, okay, maybe that was the beginning of it. Maybe Obama, the housing crisis and all that stuff coming in.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's a lot that's kind of going through my mind, at least, as far as I think that's who these people are worshiping, is the bloodlines of the Nephilim, because they were fallen angels and I think they were gods. Who
you think who's worshiping?
Like
worshiping
the deep state / if you look at the royal family, I think that.
Well, I think those people are part of that bloodline, and I think that they are controlling the earth because they are part of that bloodline.
Yeah.
And I believe too, I don't know if they don't have souls or they believe they don't have souls or if they truly don't, but that's a lot of what they're doing is trying to extend their lives because they don't believe in the afterlife.
Yeah.
That's a lot of what they're doing is trying to extend their lives through adrenochrome and, a lot of these other things that they're doing, trying to extend their life. They're trying to figure out how to take their consciousness, and I think they already can, and put it into another being, because they believe that if they die, they're gone. And so they're trying to figure out a way to keep alive.
Oh, yeah. No, there's
take over.
There's some people in Hollywood that even talk about that. Like, that's what they try to do. And then making clones. Like, they'll make a clone just so that way they can freaking switch brains.
Yeah, they make a clone and then they just move their consciousness into the younger clone because our bodies wear out. And so another reason for AI to keep our bodies so that they have more longevity.
Yeah, and so it's almost like they're waiting for their gods to come and give them forever lasting life, right? This AI technology that people will be begging for.
Well, and they know that we have forever souls.
Mm-hmm.
So they want to figure out a way to take over us, but they can take over our physical body, but I don't believe they can take over our souls.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's interesting to think about, when it comes to the bloodlines and how did they trace it? How do they keep track of it? And, the shit they talk about in the Bible, how much of it is literal versus abstract? It really makes you think.
Yeah, the Bible's very hard to understand, really.
Yeah.
At least me.
No, and I've also looked at, Jesus as a pagan god. I've compared him to pagan gods. And if you do the overlapping of, if you compare him to Horus or if you compare him to all these other mythological saviors, there's a lot of stuff that adds up. There is a lot that doesn't add up to. In the movie Zeitgeist, they talk about how Horus was born of a virgin mother, which isn't true. But there are a lot of similarities between the gods amongst all of these different religions and mythologies. So, yeah,
there is. There's other stories that are very similar to Christ and other religions, and actually in other different ages. Like the Buddhists and stuff have a very similar God that came into their world from a virgin also. Yeah. So, well, and then a lot of these stories have been repeated, so it's hard to know just, for what's going on there.
But I mean, as they repeat, you do have some idiosyncrasies here and there, like stuff where it's genuine to Christ versus other people, right? But as far as Jesus being an alien, you were thinking maybe this might be an idea too?
Well, I think that's very, very possible, because if you start looking at even reading the Bible as to how they explained things that were happening then, they didn't have the words that we have today to explain what they were seeing. So they didn't have a flying saucer or a spacecraft or a rocket. What they had was chariots. Yeah. So when they're talking about a fiery chariot coming out of the sky, what was it that they were seeing? When they're talking about an angel coming on a cloud, is that a light being? I mean, there's definitely aliens that have those abilities. So, and there's, in my opinion, this is my belief, that there's a lot of aliens that are out there that have been there for millions of years. So going back a few thousand years and seeing that, I mean, obviously, that, in my opinion, they were there. So was that just light beings, a higher angelic beings coming down? Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that they were God. Doesn't mean they weren't. But I mean, they could have been aliens that were here to help, because aliens are here to help us. That we're not evolving fast enough for them to achieve their ascension. They know we have to achieve our ascension. So they're here to try to help us do that. And they were probably here back then too. The fact that Mother Mary got impregnated, by nobody. It's like, was that... Well, we have the technology to do that now. And the aliens have the technology to do that without implanting it, they can just transport it.
Just
so that technology. I mean, they could just transport an embryo into a woman. You know, it doesn't have to go the conventional way anymore.
I get you.
I mean, if they've been around for millions of years and we can do it, we can do a test tube baby today. Imagine what they could do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I saw something the other day that said that scientists created a baby just with no mother and father. They just straight up, I don't even think sperm was used. I don't even know what they used, but they're just like, oh, here's an embryo. It's working.
I don't doubt it. I don't, because, I mean, you take DNA, they can separate DNA.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and
so here's another thing that I just found today, that supposedly there was these secret documents at the Vatican that reveal that the Vatican's been studying aliens for decades. I mean, if not longer than that.
There's no doubt.
The president,
they've been hiding it.
Oh yeah.
Ever.
Like the Vatican library is probably littered with ancient knowledge.
It is.
No one can find.
In my belief, it totally is. They've got acres of rooms underground, and they've got the Library of Alexandria down there. Everybody thinks that was destroyed, or pretty common knowledge it was destroyed. Only part of it was destroyed. Most of it was moved to the Vatican. And and that has a lot of alien technology in it.
Well, I'm really impressed by their astrology department. I mean, they have one of the world's largest telescopes in Arizona on Mount Graham.
Yeah.
And the president of the Vatican Observatory Foundation, Guy Consolmagno.
Isn't that thing called Lucifer?
So yeah, one of the cameras on that is called the Lucifer. Yeah. Very odd, right?
It is odd.
The bringer of light, and if you think about it, you have the world's most powerful observatory. You have this camera that will bring you information, knowledge, the knowledge bringer, Lucifer, right? So
yeah.
Well, so the president of that Observatory Foundation in the Vatican stated, quote, "Very soon the nations will look to aliens for their salvation." And he said that, I think, back in 2014. So this he's the president of the Vatican Observatory saying that we will worship aliens.
That's pretty bizarre.
Uh-huh. So I'm thinking, like, what in the, they're literally just coming out and being blasphemous that way, right?
Kind of sounds that way.
So
unless they know, we don't know.
Yeah. Well, and another thing that kind of fits into this end times prophecy thing is the last pope. Have you heard about this prophecy?
Yeah, I have.
So back in the 1100 or something, 12th century, you had Saint Bishop Malachi, right? Saint Malachi.
Right. Yeah, it is Malachi.
And he predicted from this day forth there would be 112 popes, and Pope Francis is the 112th pope.
Yeah.
And he seems to be very dirty. I caught him on camera doing a Freemasonic handshake with Nancy Pelosi, and it was very deliberate. She would look down at the hand, and she moved the thumb over the knuckle and then moved it back and then looked at him, and then they were like, yeah, okay. And then when they went to shake hands again later in the video, he covered his hand so you couldn't see what he was doing on top. So I'm pretty sure he's a Mason.
Yeah.
Which is forbidden. So it's forbidden in the Catholic Church.
I believe he's evil.
Do you think that all Masons are evil?
No.
Like high up ones, the ones in the know?
From what I understand, it's the 33rd level and above.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Who knows?
I think that a bunch of Masons are there just to, like, have fun and, like, do weird stuff, too. Like, it's pretty weird, like the rituals and all that shit.
It is.
But I think when you get up into the higher echelons of it, I think that it's been infiltrated with people that have ancient knowledge and they want to take over something.
And it goes back a long, long way. Back to the time of Christ. I mean, the Masons were the builders, and they had a lot of power, and whatever happened back then is carried through today, but I think only at the very highest levels.
So it's almost bloodline, you think?
I don't know that. I'm not sure. I've never seen it as bloodline, but it probably is to a certain extent, because it's people that are very trusted.
Yeah.
That have to be pretty much invited into it.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm like trying to figure out what's going on with Trump and the Masons. And I know that he's from Scotland. I think he has Scottish history. His family's from Scotland. Yeah. And, the Freemasons, like the Scottish Rite Freemasons are like the most ancient ones, right?
Well, a lot of the people that built our country were Masons. The foundation. I mean, I think that all of them pretty much were Masons.
Yeah, I'm going to send you a video called Belly of the Beast. It's a 2-hour documentary, but it's about the founding of our country and how it's probably not what people thought. It wasn't founded on Christianity. It was founded upon pagan beliefs. Well,
it's really pretty confusing because you're right. I mean, everybody thinks it was founded on, but they did create freedom of choice as far as Christianity goes and the church. But even Washington, D.C. is built around a weird scenario.
Yeah.
Everything has meanings to it, the way the streets are, the buildings are.
Yep.
And it's all Masonic stuff. And I don't understand it all, but it's pretty weird.
Well, and isn't it weird that Washington, D.C. has never become a state?
Yeah. Well, that goes back to a whole different thing, that there's basically 3 heads to the cabal, and Washington D.C. is the military head. The Vatican, and then the English part of it, the European part, is the Parliament, I think. They're not owned by any country.
Yeah, I'm looking this up on history.com. It says, why isn't Washington, D.C. a state? And I think they did try to push for it before the 2020 election.
They're trying to, yes, but those are all cabal owned and not part of any country.
Yeah.
And that's the reason for that. That's the reason for that is they're independent.
Okay. There's a lot of shit to it, but I'll send you that documentary because it's fascinating. I mean, the Washington Monument, the raising of Osiris ritual, every president does the raising of Osiris ritual, which is at high noon at noon in front of the Washington Monument. The sun is at its highest part where it gives maximum energy to the obelisk, which is the monument, which is supposed to help impregnate the belly of, I forget what it's called, the herodome. The herodome is where supposedly, okay, so the inauguration is done twice. I didn't know this, but it's done. Yeah. It's done publicly in front of the cameras, and privately in the herodome. And in the herodome, that's supposed to represent the womb of Isis, where she's impregnated again. And the mythological story of Osiris dying, being split into 13 or 14 pieces. Isis goes and puts 13 of the pieces back together, but can't find his, his ding-a-ling. So she creates this obelisk, and she sits on it, becomes impregnated with Horus, which is the falcon, and that's where the Eye of Horus comes from.
Well, isn't it kind of weird that they created a monument like that? I mean,
all over the world. I mean,
what is the purpose of that? I mean, it's just a weird structure.
Yeah,
so it's got to have some sort of a meaning.
For sure. Yeah, and I mean, when it absorbs the maximum amount of energy, that is when the president is inaugurated at noon. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so he is supposedly supposed to be divine representation going forward. And that's what the Egyptian pharaohs, how they said the pharaohs were gods, or at least they thought they were gods. Yeah. It's because they were anointed to be divine representation of the gods. Like they did the whole ritual just like how we have an inauguration ritual. Theirs was, you'd float the new pharaoh up the river. You would enter into the womb, like they made this chamber which represented the womb of Isis. They would do the raising of Osiris ritual, which was like the incantation of who knows what they said. Apparently they still have the verbiage of the doctrine, but maybe that's what they do here in the United States is they say that. Maybe they do it all over the world. Maybe the United States isn't the only one because there's obelisks all over.
Yeah, there is.
So when they do this, they say, okay, you go into the room as a man and you come out as a god. And that's how, they look at presidents now too. And
right.
Each president has the opportunity to become the next Osiris, right? The end times president. And that's where people are like, okay, well, so Trump went through the initiation. So he technically went through the raising of Osiris. But it's also, I just did this on the last show that I did, and this will be the last kind of topic that I bring up here. But if you look at, are you familiar with the mythological story of Osiris?
A little bit. I'm familiar with it, but I don't remember it all.
Okay. Well, I'll send you.
I try to jam so too much into this little pea brain of mine.
For sure. Well, hey, there's a lot of info out there. So, yeah. But I'll send you a video. It's like a 20-minute video of Jordan Peterson, and he just explains it really well in a concise format. But okay. Osiris represents the stability and the foundation of tradition. And so he's old. He's not as keen as he should be, and he doesn't look where he's supposed to look. And so people can take advantage of him, and he gets killed by his brother, Set, which is Satan in the equivalent of the Bible. When that happens, Set tears him up into pieces, splits him around, blah, 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 blah. Osiris is married to Isis, which is the god of the underworld. So she raises up from the underworld to become on Earth, and then there's chaos on the Earth, right? And so chaos is reigning while she's trying to find the pieces of Osiris. She finds all of them, sits on the obelisk because she makes that, and then has a son named Horus. And Horus is a falcon. He has eyes that can see, and he's very smart. He's like Osiris, but he has the vision to predict, right? And he goes and fights Set, and he kills him. He ends up defeating him and killing him. But in the process of the fight, he loses an eye, the eye of Horus, right? And so he takes that, and instead of popping it back in his head, he goes down into the underworld to retrieve Osiris, and he gives him the eye, and they both unite and then raise from the dead. And so but now Osiris is back to rule again, but with vision. So he's awakened, and when you're awake, you open your eyes, you have knowledge. So I'm putting together this image of Trump being Osiris, representing the tradition of America, make America great again. Let's get back to our traditional values. He ends up being defeated by Set, which in this term could be the deep state, or it could be Joe Biden. I don't care. I don't know. So he gets defeated.
Or almost one and the same. For
sure. He gets defeated. So now he's waiting to return. I equated Horus as the Space Force. So Space Force is going to defeat Set and give the eye of knowledge to Trump and return him to power. And so if you think about Space Force, what are they called? Guardians. And another term for guardians, the guardians are the watchers. So if you think about watchers, they even say that in one of their little videos that they have, like, we're watching everything, right? And so their term is supra sempre or something like that, like always above. And so they are the eye that is always above looking down. And I think that they represent Horus in this scenario, and they will defeat the deep state through their knowledge and through their...
I think that is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I think that they've got all the information.
And so through that defeating of the deep state, you will have Trump rejoin with the Space Force with the knowledge. Now he has the foresight, and then he will raise back into becoming the president again. So, but then it's like, okay, so is Trump part of this shit? Because my thing with Q is I dug it all the way up until no one got arrested on President Biden's inauguration, right? And then I'm thinking, okay, what's going on here? And then the fact that everybody had to go through this.
I think everybody misunderstood the Q posts. I think the Q posts are multifaceted, and I think that a lot of them are just now coming to fruition. A lot of them are coming true right now.
For sure. Yeah, well, I
for one still believe in the Q posts. I still believe they're relevant.
My thing is, I think it's a Freemasonic thing. I think Q is now like this Freemasonic movement because you're creating order out of chaos. Because now, if he would have just arrested people and like, yes, maybe there would have been some chaos that came out of that for sure. But the fact that there's multiple posts that say people had to see it, they had to go through it. You have to walk through like the darkness to get. I don't know if there's posts that say that, but
I think that's totally true. If you solve the problem too early, people are just going to let it happen again because they didn't learn a lesson. They didn't see what really happened.
Yeah, and that's where I kind of agree with the chaos or order through chaos. Like you kind of have to walk through hell to get to heaven sometimes because you got to learn your lessons. And it's it's the same motto as, weak times or weak men make weak times or whatever that term is. And then strong men make strong times, that kind of symbology.
Mm-hmm.
And so
if you've got an easy life, you're not going to be a strong man. If you have a life that has a lot of turmoil, a lot of resistance, you have to work really hard. You learn and grow and become strong. That's what builds a strong man.
Yeah.
Iron makes iron.
And you're ordered. You're ordered. You're collected. You know where to go. You know what to do. It's not chaos. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Because you've been through it before. You learn lessons. You learn what it takes to get through diversity.
Yeah. So, and that's where, I ask, is chaos through order, or order through chaos, I think could be like a life lesson that's learned. But if it's used as like a Hegelian dialectic, like let's create a problem and let's have their reaction, then let's also provide their solution, I think that that's the wrong way. It's a manufactured order through chaos.
I don't know. I feel that Masons at the higher levels are probably satanic.
Yeah. Yes.
They have a lot of weird worshiping practices.
They do. And didn't they have the one stripper come in there? Someone recorded that on their cell phone. They had a stripper come in.
They had that one gal that does those really weird rituals. I forget, but
Marina Abramovich?
Yeah.
She came in there?
I think so.
Oh,
I think she's. I wouldn't swear to that, but she has a lot. A lot of their rituals have to do with that kind of stuff.
Okay. Well, nonetheless, we'll see what happens with the Q stuff. Like, I agree. I think it's exciting. I don't want the deep state to be in control, but I think
if they are, we're screwed.
Well, yeah.
Bottom line, in the sentence. I mean, if they get total control, we're screwed.
But then again, I'm keeping my eye on this as I think it might be two birds of the same wing. Just because the deep state loses doesn't mean what's coming in to replace them is going to be not the savior.
I think that's where you get into the whole. There's multiple timelines or multiple things going on at different levels, and the political level and what's going on the political side with Trump and the deep state here is one thing. But what's happening on a much bigger level is the vibrational entity of the earth and the people on it, and our eventual ascension actually trumps that. Not to,
no pun was intended.
No pun intended. But actually trumps that. If our planet goes into the higher vibration, rapture happens and stuff, all this political stuff's going to fall inside.
Yeah,
it's going to be. Not going to be relevant. It's going to be wiped out.
Yeah, we shall see. And that's a topic for a whole nother podcast.
Well, that's for me, that's the bigger picture. That's the eventual picture. Our ascension our ascension is what's really happening here, and the political side of all this part of that, but
okay,
it's not the big picture.
I get you. Well, hey, I'm gonna get out of here because the kids are now breaking into the pod room. I'm gonna have to put a lock on the door, I guess. All right. Well, Ron, it's been awesome. Hopefully everybody out there enjoyed this episode of Strange Sauna. And if you do like it, please share the show, or at least convince people to sign up on Patreon, Rockfin, and all that stuff, and let people know about it. All righty. And thank you, Ron, and we'll do this again soon.
Sounds good.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Talk to you later.